Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about how not to be bored at camp. I see this on social media a lot about what do you do at camp? How do you keep from being bored to death? And I know that's what keeps a lot of people from going camping is that they think it's boring. But there is a lot of stuff that you can do around camp to keep from being bored. For me, being out here in nature is enough. I can sit quiet and just be in peace with nature. And for me, that's one of the main reasons why I come out here. But for others, they come out to socialize with family and friends. And while they're out here, they want to have stuff to do. Well, there's a list a mile long of things that people can do at camp, depending on whether you're in an RV and you've got all kinds of games and toys that you can pack with you, or if you're in a car, or if you're backpacking. But I'm just going to go over some generalizations of things that you can do at camp to keep you from being bored, just to kind of break up the monotony at camp. One of the big things that we can do while we're around camp is improve our camping area. We can do things like cleaning out our fire pit, picking up the big rocks and sticks and limbs and stuff like that that's kind of accumulated over time within our camp to make it easier to walk around without tripping over stuff. We can clean our tent. We can clean our campers. Just rearranging and reordering things so that they make more sense whenever we need to use them. Another thing you can do is sit down and plan your next steps of your adventure. What are you going to do tomorrow or the next day? Are you hiking? Are you backpacking? What point do you want to get to? Look at the map or familiarize yourself with the area you're going the next day. If you're on a long RV camping trip, where are you going to stop and get fuel? Where are you going to get groceries? Where are you camping next? Are the reservations made? There's all kinds of things you can do to be prepared for tomorrow. Another thing we can do is just sitting and watching the wildlife, learning what the wildlife does while it's out here. What are the chipmunks doing? How do they gather food? How do they build their nests? Watch the birds. How do the birds and the chipmunks compete for resources? There's all kinds of things we can do, all the way down to the microscopic, or not microscopic, but very little ants and bugs that are crawling around in camp. How do they build their home, and why do they do it that way? If you're into that kind of thing, that can take up your entire camping trip, just watching those things and learning from them. Another thing you can do is repair your gear. Do you have things that have been torn or broken or punctured, things that need to be fixed? Those are all things that we can do around camp to help continue the experience and keep it going fun and prep food for our next meals. That's another thing we can do, is making sure that whatever meal is coming up, all the food is out, things are cut up, prepared, sorted for what we need, when we need it, to make that cooking experience a lot more fun and to make it go faster. So people talk about meditation a lot, and being out in nature is one of the best places to meditate. And there's two types of meditation as far as I'm concerned. There's contemplation, and then there is the elimination of thought in general. So contemplation is where you're sitting around and you're going through, in your mind, you're playing out events and how they could happen, how they should happen, what happens if they don't happen that way. Just general life that you're measuring, calculating, and just letting your mind work through all of the different things that could happen to your life. The other type of meditation is just the emptying your mind of thoughts. So for me, that is one of the best ways to feel what's going on around you is by not having anything going on up here. If you're sitting and watching the wildlife, don't think, don't talk to yourself about what they're doing. Just watch. If you're listening to the breeze, just let the breeze happen and don't say anything about it. Don't say how strong the breeze is or how light it is. If you're taking in the smells, don't talk about the smells to yourself. Just let the smell happen to you. So those are the two types of meditations that I do while I'm out in nature. And I like the latter more than the former. I like just letting it happen to me and taking it in without labeling it or trying to put it into any context. Because that'll be used later on. Your mind, your gut, your senses will know how to use all that information when the time comes. I've got a little chipmunk running up here and grabbing a piece of dog food and running back up the hill and eating it. And he's done that a couple of times now. Another thing, walking, hiking, sightseeing, and taking a pair of binoculars with you whenever you're doing that. There's so many times when I'm out walking a trail or, hiking or just taking a leisurely stroll around the campground and I see something that I really wish I could get a better view of. And if I had a pair of binoculars, I could zoom right in on it and see exactly what it is. And, bird watchers, animal watchers, all those kinds of people take binoculars with them for a very good reason. To me, when you're camping, it's not really a camping adventure unless there's a campfire. Like a campfire should accompany every camping adventure. And sitting around the campfire and telling stories on each other is a good way to pass the time. That is the time when you rib your friends about wrecking his motorcycle or trying to show off and dumping his bike or anything that could happen around camp. One of your lady friends gets scared by a chipmunk that runs up her pant leg. Reminding people of stories of things like that has happened to them on past camping experiences. That's just good old-fashioned fun, and the time flies by really fast. And the last thing that I'm going to mention, before I get to that, there's also games. Like when I was a kid, we had lawn darts, and they don't even sell lawn darts anymore, but lawn darts, badminton, hide and go seek, kick the can, all kinds of card games, board games, stuff like that. And there is something to enjoying those things while sitting out in nature instead of being surrounded by brick and mortar and wood and sheetrock, keeping you away from all these things. Kicking your shoes off and just planting your feet in the ground and playing a good old card game with your friends. That's a good, wholesome way to pass the time. And then the last thing that I'll say about how to spend your time around camp is practicing camp skills, like tying knots, making tools. How do you set up tarps in different ways for blocking wind, for blocking rain, for being a ground tarp with a rain and wind block? Practicing building all of those things and using the different knots and see which knots hold better than others, which ones are easier to tie, which ones are faster. How do you build fires? All different kinds of way of building fires. Upside down fires, long fires, teepee fires, log cabin fires. There's tons of different ways of building fire. And look around at your different tinders. What can you use to initially start a fire? Like grasses and leaves and moss and things that are generally dead in the forest, not animal-wise, but plant-wise. Dead plants that are scrunchy, are usually really good tinder. And looking around your camp and maybe gathering up some of those to build your fire that night is another good way to spend your time. Gathering firewood, getting little twigs and the bigger sticks as it goes up. Those are all really good ways to pass the time. And if you can't pass the time camping with all of those, I don't know what to tell you. I have done all of those things over and over a million times. And I've gotten to the point where now I don't even think about what's going on when I get to camp. It's just everything happens. One thing happens after another. You learn. You set your tent up first, then you put this away, then you put that away, then you set this up and set that up, then you gather firewood, then you find a bathroom, then there's all kinds of things that you do when you're camping, and the more you do it, the more you get it down to where you don't even have to think about it. So now I do a lot of just peaceful meditation and watching the wildlife and just soaking in nature. So I hope that helps you on your next camping adventure. See you next time.